What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Sober Truth Podcast. I am your host, the Tattooed Pastor. It's very rare, but it does happen that I occasionally have someone with almost as many tattoos as myself, and it is pretty cool for that to be happening today. So I have with us today somebody that I've been trying to contact, get in touch with, do something with, you name it, for a few years now. His name is Johnny Crowder. He is the founder of Cope Notes, which is this amazing mental health app that has gained nationwide recognition. He has really broken down some barriers with that app, and he's going to tell us about that today. He is a TED Talk host who has some amazing work that you can find right there on YouTube, where he's speaking in his powerful tone that he uses. And he is the frontman for a band called Prison, which I love. Maybe you never heard of, maybe you have, but after today, I guarantee you're going to seek them out and find out what they're all about. And we'll dive in a little bit about how we got to know each other. And that's an interesting thing. But first, let's welcome to the show, Mr. Johnny Crowder.
Mr. Johnny Crowder. I'm still getting used to that. For a long time, I was the young buck doing this stuff, and then now I'm like the normal buck. Like, I'm just a guy. I'm not a young guy. I'm just a guy. So I'm still adjusting to that.
Yeah, it's funny because what makes us a mister anyways, right? So for me, coming out of addiction, I had screwed up my life so much, nobody really called me mister. And when I first heard it, it wasn't about age, it was about respect. And I was like, who else is in the room? Yeah, okay, this is kind of weird. Anyways, yeah. So Johnny, why don't you just jump right in, man? Tell us what's up with you these days. What's new?
What's new? One thing that's pretty cool that I'm excited about is a few different things are new. One is that I haven't played a concert in a while, just because when you're young and you're touring and everybody has all the time in the world, you play all the time. You play a couple hundred shows a year. And then now we're all getting older, and that changes stuff. Like some of our band members have kids. I run a company, so it's like we're not as able to meet up to play as often as we were. So not only do we have a new single coming out in less than a week, but also in the time of this recording, but then also we're playing some shows in Florida in October. And that's exciting for me because my friends and family only see videos of us playing other states. They never get to actually come see what it's all about in person. So I'm very excited to play Florida shows. And then on the Cope Notes side, something that's been pretty cool is we just signed a contract with United Healthcare for Medicaid in the state of Florida. So we're getting to serve all of these people that we couldn't have served otherwise. And my dream, anyone's dream inventing anything, like if you make a band, you want a lot of people to listen to your music. If you make a resource, you want a lot of people to be impacted by it. So it's like the next step in that dream of trying to impact as many people as possible with what we've created.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. So let's dive in here. So being, the frontman of a rock and roll band, I guess a hard rock band at that. So, which is pretty wild, but also running a mental health company is pretty interesting. Now, my followers, they know me, even though I'm a pastor, am, in recovery, and I am all about helping the world see recovery differently, because I think that the way we've been going about recovery has been wrong, and there's a better way to do it. And that is, includes compassion and empathy and connection with one another. And that doesn't matter if it's addiction or if it's mental health, but we need that connection with each other. But so anybody who's followed me or watched my shows, they know that I have a lot of friends that are in the rock and roll industry, and the funny thing is, and I wanted to put you on the spot with this, but I, wrote 2 books that, were fairly successful. And on both books, I reached out to you for an endorsement and you didn't do it. And I was
so sad. Me?
Yeah.
Where? Email or LinkedIn? Or?
I think it was like a LinkedIn or something. You probably didn't get it, but I just wanted to let you know, that's how long I've been trying to get you.
Man.
I wanted you to endorse both books and I couldn't get a hold of you. And hey, whatever, you're a busy guy. We already.
No, I need to hear this because I am so behind on LinkedIn messages. I have people like, I'll run into somebody and they'll be like, I've been messaging you for like 5 years. And I'm like, and then when I sort on LinkedIn to unread, I see stuff from years ago and I'm like, I get too intimidated to go back and search.
Because I can't handle the shame.
I am so sorry, George.
It's cool.
This is such a late pass.
Yeah, it's cool. I get it. But the funny thing is, now I just want to share it to the people listening because it's really interesting. Is we have a mutual friend we now know in Brian Welch from the band Korn. But we're at this show the other night. 20,000 people at the show. I go to the back with my friend Cody, and we're waiting in the green room or whatever for Korn to finish up their stuff. And there's a few people in there, and you, who I don't know who you are at that time, like just automatically reach out and be like, hey, what's your shirt all about? I actually had this shirt on, and I was like, yeah, explaining, it's faith and recovery. And it's funny because people that may know you, I got to tell you, Johnny is legit a super interesting animated individual because he jumped right in with like, I love recovery. I love faith. I need to talk about this. And something about how you did that, like, because I don't have your face memorized, but something about how you did it, like you're like, hey, I'm Johnny, and I'm like, what is your last name? And you're like, Crowder. I just knew it was you, which is super funny. And so after all that, we're both friends with Brian Welch, and so we got to go hang out backstage together for a couple hours, which was super cool. But out of all these people, we come together. So I think it's, whatever. You didn't answer the LinkedIn 5 years ago, but we meet at backstage at a Korn concert and automatically hit it off. So that'll be the beginning of our relationship.
That is just it's such a meet cute. It's like, oh, we were both backstage at the Korn show. I love that.
Yeah.
And then, we were both there. Not only that, but we were both there to visit the same person in the same band.
Yeah.
Like I came by myself just to spend time with Brian. So not only are we like, is it a chance that out of 20,000 people we ran into each other, but the fact that we were both there to visit the same person, then wound up hanging out till 2 a.m. or something like that until bus call, just hanging and talking. That was like, I'm so glad God worked to bring us together in that very unique way.
Yeah, because even we were the only two people to meet with him. So it wasn't even like there was other people. It was just us. And so we really got to connect. And a lot of, my listeners, they know, Head's been on the show a few times. And so they know we have that relationship. But to now have that relationship with you is really cool. So I say all that. Now I want to jump into I want to press in a little bit on your band. Your band is called Prison. And I do want to let people know, a lot of my, the people that watch the show or listen are from Tampa. You are going to be playing in Ybor, which is right down the street from me. And what day will that be?
Oh, it's actually, the Orpheum has moved. So it's at a venue called the Orpheum. It used to be in Ybor. They actually just moved to somewhere in Tampa, north of Ybor. But it's still in Tampa. We're playing Tampa on October 18th, which is a Friday, and then we're playing Orlando October 19th, which is a Saturday.
And you never
the Orlando
play
show
in Florida.
Is at Conduit in Orlando.
And you haven't played Florida in a long time.
We play Florida once every couple years, maybe. So you got to think like currently I'm the only full-time member who lives in Florida. So there's not like it's not like all of us are rallying to play Florida. It's just me. I'm like, oh, I'd love to play locally so my friends and family can go. And they're like, yeah, whatever. But then I'm sure my bassist feels the same way. For example, when we play Baltimore or Richmond or something, he's like, yeah, all my friends and family can come. So it's really exciting for me to get to play locally because like my girlfriend can come, my mom can come, my nephew can come. Like that's what's really exciting for me is getting to share, especially to non-metal people. Like this is what I've been up to for the past 16 years, Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So Prison is metal, right?
Yes.
Tell us about the band, how it started, where you got the name Prison, and a little bit about the band so people, when kind of can go check it out.
Yeah, so this band is sort of like a super group of other members from other bands. So I used to be in a band called Dark Sermon, and we were signed to E1 and Nuclear Blast Records. There was another band from Florida called Adalia, and that band was signed to Media Scare Records. It was like Dark Sermon was blackened death metal, so real fast stuff, dark stuff. Adalia was like metalcore, more melodic, and that band, two of the members from that band were actually original members of Prison. And then there was another band called In Alcatraz 1962, from like the DMV area, like DC, Baltimore, Virginia. And And up there, he was also in a band called Abacab, which is like anyone who listened to deathcore in like the 2000s would be like, I know Abacab. I paid money to see Abacab, and like John, our Prison's bassist, was the bassist of that band.
Wow.
It's like a bunch of bands that used to play shows together and just knew each other through being in the industry for so long. We all just all of our bands started slowing down around the same time. And we're like, man, we still want to do this music thing. Like, what if we all just got together and did something together? So that we actually we released our first music in 2014, but we were all still in our other bands. So we weren't allowed to pursue that band full time until our record contracts were fulfilled. And then when that happened, we started touring in 2017. And the name Prison was actually, it came from this idea that when you're in prison, you have a very small little confined area where you spend almost all of your time. You spend it in your cell. And then for like 1 hour a day, you're out in the elements. Like you can be out in the yard, or you can play cards, or you can play basketball or lift weights or whatever. And that's how we've always thought about music, is that like 1 hour that you're just outside of your own head. You're outside of those confines. You can do something that allows you to stretch and be creative and be yourself. So really the idea of Prison as a band name is the idea is a mental prison that we spend almost all of our time in. And then creativity allows us to escape that, even for just these finite little periods, like a concert.
Nice. That's really cool. Now, your mental health journey, was that tied into where you came up with that?
Yeah, from day one, a lot of our lyrics have been about mental health, even like early prison stuff that you can't find on the internet anymore. Maybe if you dig really hard, you can. A lot of our early stuff, I write all the lyrics. I write half the music and 100% of the lyrics. So a lot of it is about things that I've been through, either faith or recovery or struggling with those things, dealing with anger or grief. And I think I was nervous at first because my first band, Dark Sermon, I would dress it up in the lyrics. So I'd make it I'd use metaphors, and I would sort of make it this beautiful poetic thing where like you'd really have to read and think like, oh, I wonder what he's trying to say here. Because I was afraid of saying exactly what I was going through. And then in Prison, I was just like, screw that. I'm going to be 100% honest. And I'm sure a lot of people won't like it, and that's okay. So Dark Sermon was like this very poetic, like novel. And then Prison was like, I'm depressed and that's scary. So it's like way more direct.
In your face. Yeah.
And I think it's been a relief to see people gravitate towards that and relate to that.
Yeah. Now, I imagine you have people that aren't familiar with your passion for mental health and just look at that type of band. You got all these scary tattoos and immediately be judged like you're some Satan worshiper. What is happening? You have a lot of that kind of judgment from people that don't know.
It is funny. My one thing that comes to mind is my uncle said, yeah, I tried to check out Prison, but I just couldn't listen to it because the lyrics were like, F this, F that. And I'm like, I've never cursed in any of our lyrics. And he's like, oh, it just sounded so angry that I just assumed you were cursing. I'm like, what are you talking? This is someone that's known me since I was like a baby. So It is interesting to see the predisposition that people have towards heavy music. And also I understand, I mean, it's the same as like, this might not be the most eloquent example. You can cut it out if you don't like how it sounds. But I think like, when I get a tattoo and people look at it, I don't think like, what the heck is this person staring at? It's like, yeah, I know that's part of the deal. Like if I get something that's visible, or if I'm wearing a shirt, there's this band Aborted that we toured with, and they're from Belgium. So I'll wear a shirt that says Aborted and people stare at me. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, I don't think that they're ridiculous for staring. I recognize that I'm the outlier. So it doesn't really hurt me the way that it did before. I don't take offense to it now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of obvious. Like, yeah, this music's a little loud and aggressive and not for everybody. And so, yeah, if they're going to judge, but there is an interesting truth in how people can, whatever their paradigm is, your own uncle, oh, you're saying the F word all the time, can hear something that is not there.
Oh yeah.
And it really tells the truth of how people that are struggling with addiction or mental health, people judge them for things that are not true about them just because of their current belief set about addiction or mental health or whatnot. And it's just really interesting how we all come to the table with preset, cognition of what is happening. And often we are just way off.
Yeah, I did this panel. This was so funny. I did this panel at a school. It was like a student mental health thing. And everybody was asking questions. And somebody had said, one of the other panelists had said, like, well, I'm sure Johnny's experience with his own drug and alcohol use has probably affected his recovery or something like that. And I remember thinking, like, I've never used drugs or alcohol in my entire life. And people commonly look at me and they're like, well, I mean, look at you.
Yeah.
Like, of course, addiction has to be some part of your story. And it is true that that the reason I'm sober is because I was in an environment, my friends and family did use drugs and alcohol, and it affected their lives and in effect my life as a child in such a way that I made a decision never to use drugs or alcohol. But it is funny when, like, people might look at somebody else and think, like, well, yeah, you never tried drinking or you never tried drugs. But they look at me and they're like, come on, Johnny, who are you trying to fool? Look at you. And it is funny, like, having that moment where I'm like, I recognize it's not ridiculous that they're assuming that. It's actually ridiculous that I've never tried drugs or alcohol, because now that's so countercultural that people wouldn't believe me almost no matter what I look like.
Right. That's true. So we were talking the other night and you had brought up how, you have all these amazing things, and we're going to get into Cope Notes and your life there. And I also want to talk to you a little bit about your relationship and what it's like to be in one now. But I want to go to the place where the other night you were mentioning how you have these wonderful things happening on one hand with Cope Notes, but then you're also, prison is, playing in Florida, and you have a new single coming out and some great things there. Obviously 16 years of pursuing the rock and roll dream. Which one are you supposed to pursue? And I found this the other day because I'd been thinking about that, and I wanted to read it to you. And the interesting thing about it is it's written by a guy named Johnny Crowder. So
was it literally me?
No, it's not literally you, but
okay. I was like, mic drop at my younger self writing this. Okay.
That would have been cool, but it's a theologian. His name's John Crowder, but he's somebody I really appreciate. But he says, are you still trying to figure out what God has called you to do? Ask yourself instead what you would enjoy doing, even if you didn't get paid for it. That's probably what you're ultimately called to do. Now go and get paid for that. So what do you enjoy being doing? And to all our listeners, right? It's like, that question of what has God called me to do? And I believe God wants us to do what we enjoy doing. Often we mistake other abilities that we have that maybe we're just gifted in, but we don't really enjoy for what we enjoy doing. So I just wanted to share that to you. And I thought there was some irony in the guy's name being John Crowder.
This has been an interesting period of my life because when I was younger, so I live with bipolar. And in that, there can be an inbuilt tendency to be maybe all black or all white. Like you stub your toe and you're like, today sucks. And it's like, well, no, today doesn't suck. You just stubbed your toe. So as a result, sometimes I can go pretty hard towards stuff. So like if I'm like, I want to be a rock star. And I'm sure my friends and family were like, okay, you're 4 years old. I'm sure you'll figure out something else that you like. And then it's like at 8, I start playing guitar every day. And they're like, okay, well, it's just like a little music phase. And then I start playing concerts when I'm 15, 16 years old. And they're like, okay, it's nice that he's doing a local band thing. And then, I start touring when I'm 17. We get signed when I'm 19. I'm sure my family's like, okay, he's taking this pretty far. Like, and then I start touring full time, and I tour full time until COVID. So there's a good 10-year period where I'm just on the road. And I'm sure that if you would have interviewed me during that period, what do you want to do? I would say, George, I'm going to play a concert every single day for the rest of my God-given life. I'm going to be
Mm.
the Rolling Stones, where they're like wheeling me out on stage in a wheelchair, and I'm going to headbang as best as I can sitting down in that wheelchair. And it was like the only thing that I could see myself doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID forced a renaissance in my life where it stretched me to consider that music is a vehicle
Mm.
for impact, creativity, ministry. And now I feel fortunate in that I feel that I could accomplish what I am trying to accomplish through any vehicle, through a
Mm-hmm.
book, through a podcast, through a speaking series, through a YouTube channel, through a company, through a record. You know, it could be a folk band, it could be a metal band, it could be a hip hop project. So I think COVID sort of forced me to consider, what if the one vehicle that you've been married to isn't the only way for you to accomplish this? So now I feel conflicted in that I'm in my mid 30s and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be in a rock band when I'm 90 years old. That's like a weird thing. Maybe it sounds normal for other people, but I'm the guy who, like, I'm not the guy who's like, oh, I could have gone pro, but I broke my ankle
Yeah.
in the playoffs in college. It's like, no, I did it. I went to the NFL, and then I played in the NFL for 10 years. And it's like somebody telling me you can't play in the NFL until you're 90. And I'm like,
Mm.
yeah, I'll show
Yeah.
you. So there's this part of me that resists it, but there's another part of me that recognizes I am maybe, I'll preface this by saying I've been very financially strapped for almost my entire life. Like touring, when you said like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, now go get paid for it, I'm telling you, most days on tour, it could be a sold out show. All the photos and videos make us look like rock stars. When we get to the van, it's like, here's your $5, here's your $10. We're like, no freaking way. So
Right.
while I have been, while I have traded financial gain to pursue this, I also, in a strange way, feel very wealthy, because I am maybe one of the few people who is aware of how many avenues I can pursue to
Mm.
accomplish my goal. So the past 4 years since COVID, I've made it my work to make peace with the idea that maybe I never play another concert. Maybe I never put out another record, but instead write a book, or instead I start a second company, or instead,
Yeah.
and stretching to consider that God can use other things to accomplish what he wants to accomplish through me has given me this peace that I recognize. Like, imagine everybody in the world makes a normal salary, and then you have an inheritance of like $1 billion. Like,
Right.
that's how I feel. So when people lay down in bed and they're like, I don't know what God wants me to do, I do have moments where I'm like, I don't know exactly which vehicle, but I can't remember the last night I lay down in bed and I'm like, I don't know what God wants me to do. It's like, yeah, it seems pretty clear. Like, I'm supposed to be creative and help people feel better,
Mm.
you know?
Nice. That's beautiful. Now, why don't we share a little bit with people why you have a message? So, your own personal journey. You are a public speaker, very sought after to speak on mental health. You have a really great TED Talk, and what's it all about? So, tell us about your own personal journey and your struggles with mental health and all of the different things and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, I call this the 30 years in 30 seconds question, because I will do my absolute best to cram it all into like the back of a book. But I grew up with severe mental illness, was not diagnosed until high school. And part of that was I was resistant to treatment. My parents were pretty convinced that I would just snap out of it. So was I. I also believed that I could never get better. So why go to treatment?
Mm.
And then in high school, I ran away from home. I came back because I didn't have a smartphone or money, or like, I mean, this was early 2000s or mid 2000s. So like I was basically incapacitated. I couldn't get past the gas station near my house. Like, I have no idea where to go. And so I came home, and then my mom basically said, either I can take you to the hospital, or a police officer can take you to the hospital. But like, one way or the other, we're going to go get this checked out. So I chose my mom because I wanted to sit in the front. And when I went, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, OCD, PTSD, like just a big, long list of all this stuff. And I was so resistant. I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what I've been through. And then slowly, as I basically started studying psychology to prove my doctors wrong. I'm like, you don't know anything. I'm going to read. Because after all, George, I was 16, so I know everything.
You knew
Like,
everything.
yeah,
Absolutely.
super genius, total savant. So I start reading about mental health. I take some psychology courses in high school. And as I'm reading these textbooks, I'm like, no, they're right. And like, of course they are. They went to school for this. And then I start becoming really curious about what I can do to improve my mental and emotional health. So I went from like, don't talk to me about it. I'm not going to open up to you. I'm never going to get better, to actually learning that people can and do get better all the time. Millions upon millions upon millions of people. I remember I found out when I was there was this moment for me that really shifted my perspective. I was in psychology class in high school, and I read in my psychology textbook that at the time, late 2000s, it was estimated that around 1% of the US population lived with schizophrenia. Mm-hmm. And I read that and I didn't think 1%, how unlucky. I thought, hold on, you're telling me there's 3 million people in this country alone who know exactly what I'm going through? Mm-hmm. Well, what the heck do they do?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the first guy to go through this. There's millions of people who have been in my shoes. They have to have done something. Mm-hmm. So it made me really curious. And that was such a turning point for me, because I became, do you have any friends who are like wicked knowledgeable about fantasy football or something? They're like, oh, that guy had like 330 yards or whatever. And you're like, how much time do you spend reading about that stuff? That was me with psychology in high school. Like, once I realized that I could do something, it became my fascination. And slowly but surely, I started volunteering in the mental health field, educating myself, doing advocacy. And that really was the start of my mental health career.
Wow. At a young age.
Yeah, I was 16 years old when I started reading about this stuff.
How did you decide you wanted to do a TED Talk?
I had wanted to do one for a long time. So I started speaking when I was 18, like at events and fundraisers and stuff like that. But it was pretty small. Like, I would speak for like a middle school classroom, or at like a fundraiser that maybe had, 100 people or 200 people at, or something like that. And I just would invite myself everywhere. Like, can I come speak about mental health? I'll do it for free. I just want practice, Mm-hmm. And then slowly but surely it started gaining momentum. And I'm like, man, it'd be so cool to give a TED Talk, because I was watching them all the time. Basically any TED Talk related to mental health or recovery I'd watched. Mm-hmm. And then a friend of mine had actually given TED Talks before. I met him. We were filming a documentary, or I wasn't filming it, I was in it. And he was one of the other people that was interviewed. And we met like on the set of this documentary. And he had mentioned casually, he's older dude, maybe like in his 60s. He's like, oh yeah, I gave a TED Talk. And I was like, no way. And he said, I gave a couple. And I was like, how did you do that? Who do you, mm-hmm. I mean, I'm mind blown. I've wanted to do that for years. And he said, I just applied. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? I literally didn't even know you could do that. So he like sat down with me on my laptop and he was like, okay, pull up where you live. Cause we're in DC or something. Mm-hmm. So he's like, pull up where you live, find the closest TED, organizers on like the TED website. And then you just fill out an application. I'm like, this can't be the process. And you literally filled out an application on the website. And then like months and months later, they called me and they were like, hey, we're interested in hearing more about your idea for a talk. So I wish I could say like, oh yeah, I just called up my agent or whatever. Then my agent called Mr. Ted himself. No, it was like I applied on their website.
Mr. Ted himself. Yes, Mr. Ted. Wow, that is pretty wild. I just have to apply. That's it. That's great.
But isn't that such a metaphor for like so many other things in our life that we build up to be super complicated and intimidating? And it's like, it's not rocket science, some of this stuff.
It's like how they always say the prettiest girl in school doesn't have a date. And that's because everybody thinks everybody else asked her to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found that to not be true, FYI. Just,
You went to ask and she was like,
she's like, no, buddy. Get in line. Yeah, this is a stupid story. So anyways, let's move forward, man. So you had this idea to do an app. Okay. Why an app? What gave you the idea?
Well, I'll start by saying, and this sounds nitpicky, but it's not meant to. It's actually not an app. And that's a
No, it's important.
it's a big differentiator for us because you don't need a smartphone to use it. So
You
this
need to
means
be smart.
not even.
Okay, good.
Not even. And the reason I point that out is because there are 36 million Americans who rely on non-smart cell phones. So traditionally, with digital mental health resources, we've been like, figure it out. Like, unless you have a shiny new iPhone, like you're on your own. So it was really important that if I created a digital tool, it couldn't be an app. It couldn't be app based because I couldn't just sleep at night knowing like tens of millions of Americans were just like left out because they didn't have an iPhone. So it is text message based. And the reason why I wanted to make a digital tool is because I ran, when I was touring in like the mid 2010s, I would hold these like informal support groups after all of our shows. It would just be at the merch table or outside after the show at the venue. And I'd talk to people about what they were going through. They'd tell me about what they were going through. And slowly it became to be a little bit more formalized. And then we started doing like in-person groups. I was calling it Better People, which eventually became something that I called Not a Therapist, which I ran for about a year. And basically it went from in-person groups. And I'm like, how the heck am I supposed to scale this? I might not be like, let's say we play Philly. I'm not going to be back in Philly for 6 months or a year. Like, what the heck is everybody supposed to do in the meantime? And then it went from that to a digital, like an online peer support resource where you could book a peer support session, like on Facebook Messenger or Skype. I'm kind of dating.
Yeah. Is that even still around?
Because this was pre-telehealth, basically.
Yeah, of course.
And you could like select an appointment, you could select your communication method, and you could name your price, and everybody named $0. So like I couldn't scale it because I didn't have any freaking money. And I ran that while I had a full-time job and while I was touring. So it like absolutely ran me ragged.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, if this is the more scalable version of that, how do I make a more scalable version of this? So the idea was everyone who used Not a Therapist, most people would select text messages as their communication method. And then most people said that the most valuable part of their interaction with Not a Therapist was talking a lot and then listening a little bit at the very end, or listening to some type of point or prompt at the beginning and then talking a lot. And I was like, man, I wonder if we could like set up some kind of like randomized automated system that could send prompts and then people could journal back infinitely. They could text us 80 times a day if they wanted, but we would just send them that one little piece of health education content, that psychology fact or journaling prompt that would kick them off or keep them steady. And so the early version was, I knew that peer support was effective because I benefited from it, but I studied abnormal psychology and neuroscience in school. So I'm like, how do I combine those two things to like help people train their brains to think differently? So that's where that random timing comes in.
Wow. And so now you've really grown. You've won all sorts of awards for it. And now how does it work with the Medicaid?
Yeah, basically people who have Medicaid through United Healthcare can use Cope Notes for free.
Really? And
starting January 1st of 2025.
Wow. That's amazing.
I know. It's like such an incredible opportunity.
Wow. How many, do you know how many like users you have?
I want to say it's around 35 or 40,000. We're like right in that range. The actual number is on our website. So if you're listening to this a year from now and it's like a jillion, please clap with us. But I think right now we're like just shy of 40,000.
Okay. Good point though. How, if anybody's listening and wants to get Cope Notes, what do they do?
Yeah, it's so easy. It's like criminally easy. You go to copenotes.com and you type in your phone number. I mean, I'm not making it up. It's like you don't have to put in your name. You don't have to put in like your health information or link your insurance. I mean, it is extraordinarily easy to sign up for.
Yeah. Do you have a story or two of somebody that's really, used it and really benefited from it?
Yeah, one that comes to mind, there's a ton on our website. There's a reviews tab and you can read like testimonials and stuff, really moving stories. But one that comes to mind is this guy sent me a video and he was like sitting in his car and he said, "Hey, I just got out of rehab and I wanted to tell you what happened, like how I even got in there." And he said, I went to Atlantic City and I went and like gambled a bunch and used a bunch of drugs and alcohol, and I decided like tonight's the night. I just lost a ton of money. I'm gonna quit life. Tonight's the night. So
Mm-hmm.
he goes to the very top, like the roof of this casino, and he climbs out onto the ledge to jump, and he sees. Do you know that type of concrete that has shells in it?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know what that's called, but it was that. And so he climbs up on the ledge and he sees those shells and he remembers a message that's like something about we find what we're looking for. Like if you go to a beach and you don't find any shells, but then you see someone walking by with 20 shells in their hand, you're like, where did they find all those? And it's like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just because that person was looking for the shells that they found them. They're on the same beach that you are,
Mm.
something like that. And the idea of that message was like, we can change our experience by changing what we look for.
Mm.
And then he like gets down off the ledge, calls his mom. His mom takes him to rehab.
Wow.
And it was like, it wasn't even like, I wish I could tell the story that like, and then his phone buzzed and it was a text message from Cope Notes that said, get down, but it
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
that. It was like, it was him remembering a message that came maybe weeks or months prior. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the real power of what we're doing is we are equipping people with an arsenal. Like we are filling their tool belt with all of these different reasons to change or things to consider to shift their perspective. And we hear a lot of stories like that where sometimes the perfect message does come at the perfect time and you're like, whoa, that
Right.
was
Right.
spooky. But a lot of times the real change is like, this stimulus is triggering something that I learned weeks or months ago. And I need to apply that thing that I know in this situation.
Wow. Wow. That is so good. Now I realize a lot of my listeners who struggle with mental health, it's why they kind of listen in, want to hear you told us the beginning of your story of really, being diagnosed with schizophrenia and other mental health issues and everything. How are you today and how did you really heal from that?
I am so much better today that I don't recognize anything about myself prior. Like I feel like my old self was a completely different person, and while I empathize for him, I don't relate to him. And that's such a that I don't carry. I mean, I know what I've been through. I mean, that's a
Mm-hmm.
big part of me going around and speaking as I tell people what I've been through. But it almost feels like it happened to a different person that I feel close to. Like, oh, it happened to my good friend or something, or it
Mm-hmm.
happened to my brother. But I do feel removed from it. My daily life is so dramatically different. Like I do not hallucinate, have not hallucinated in a long time. I do not have any desire to end my own life. Even though I experience stress and fear and sadness and grief, and I still experience like a full range of emotion. I've not been medicated for 6, 7 years.
Wow.
So I was medicated for 11. So I was really like, my math might be off there, but I know I was
Yeah, I got
medicated for over a decade.
you. Mm-hmm.
And my experience wasn't linear where like every day I got a little bit better and I never got worse. Like, no, I was definitely a roller coaster. I had like periods of weeks or months where I was making tremendous progress, and then periods of weeks or months where I felt like it was a total wash. Um, but overall, my life is so extraordinarily different now. It's unrecognizable to the point that people who knew me before think that I'm faking being healthy,
Mm. Okay.
like for my career. And I
Okay.
wish I could communicate to them, like, no, this is kind of what recovery looks like. You're like, you become a different person because you're happier and healthier and safer. I would say that I consider recovery my full time job. So
Yeah.
it's more important to me than, like, when I was younger, I would trade anything to be a rock star. I'd trade anything. And now I'm like, I can think of 10 things that I wouldn't trade. And recovery is one of them. Faith
Mm.
is one of them. Integrity is one of them. Like, I would rather, quote unquote, fail in my career and maintain my sobriety, maintain my faith, maintain my integrity, my character, I won't pay any price for those.
Wow. Is there anything you specifically would attribute to your recovery?
I would say health education is one of the most important things that I ever put time or effort into. Mm-hmm. Understanding what I was going through. So many people turn away from it. They're like, I don't want to learn about it because it's too difficult. If you learn about it, it is so liberating. Mm-hmm. You realize that there are tons of people who've been through what you're going through. They're even listening to podcasts like this. Like people, I would consider this health education. You're listening, your listeners are exposing themselves to stories of people who have been through what they've been through and are healthier as a result of it. Exposing yourself to positive outcomes, potential positive outcomes, and imagining them for myself, that was so powerful, as well as consistency. Really, like I exercise every single day. I eat food that is good for me every single day. I sleep every single day. I talk to friends every single day. I do something creative every single day. Like that, I pray every single day. I think the consistency, making it a habit, has sustained me through periods where like, oh, I don't feel like working out, or dude, talk about it. I don't feel like taking my medication, or I don't feel like going to therapy. I can't count how many moments I had like that. But because I had made it a habit, like a part of my daily routine, I would stick to it even when I didn't feel like doing it. And looking back, I think it would still be unwell had I not made it a part of my daily routine to prioritize my wellness.
That is so good. That is so good. I think I try to stress that with the people that I work with, that it is a daily thing that you've got to continue moving forward every single day, and you've got to look at your recovery, and it's got to be a treasure to you. You have to look at it, and it's got to be worth everything to you.
Yeah, it's not I don't mean to make it sound like a slog where you're just like, I can't believe I have to give it up, dude. It is in fact, I don't have kids, but I imagine it's like what it would feel like to have a kid. Like, I will do it for my son because I love my son. He's the most important person in my life. That's how I feel about my recovery. Is like, even when it's hard, I'm like, I absolutely will do this because it's invaluable to me.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. We got a few minutes before you got that hard stop, so I wanted to bring this part up. One of the things that really shocked me when I met you the other night was when you dropped the bomb on me that you were a person of faith. I did not know that. I had asked people, and nobody could give me a clear answer. So when you started talking to me, and you were like, talking about your girlfriend and baptisms and faith and God, and I was like, really? That was a shock to me. And it was a wonderful shock, and not judging anybody that doesn't, have the same faith, obviously. But to find out you are a person of faith and relatively newer to faith, considering your journey, which has been through hell and back. But your faith really came in 2016. Can you share just a little bit about, what it's like to go from whatever you were before, I don't know, like an atheist, a non-believer, or whatever, to where you are?
Yeah, I was part of what I call the American majority, which is people who are angry at God and simultaneously don't believe that he exists. Yeah. I was definitely that. I was like, screw you. And also, I'm talking to nobody. It was like for most of my life. And then I started getting really curious about God in general, like God as a concept. And I'm like, well, are like, I don't know, 6 billion people totally delusional? Like maybe they are. I don't know, but I want to like do some reading for myself. By the way, the church had totally turned me off my whole life. Like I'd just seen discrimination and bigotry and just some of the most immoral behaviors I'd ever seen coming from the church. And I'm like, I'm good on God if that's what it looks like. So then we're talking 2015, I start reading about God. But that will look like me reading anything but something about Christianity or Jesus. I was so closed off to that. I would read about Hinduism or Buddhism or Taoism. Like anything but the Jesus stuff. anything but Christianity. And you got to remember, I was in a subculture where Christianity was one of the most despised ideologies because it represented bigotry and exclusivity and division. So corruption. So it took me reading a bunch of books about all these other religions to then eventually realize that Jesus kept popping up in all these books. I'm like, why is it that I buy a book about Taoism and then boom, Jesus is in it? Or I buy a book about meditation, boom, Jesus is in it. I buy a book about Buddhism, boom, Jesus is in it. Why is he in all these books? And I was so frustrated. And then I went to visit. This was like a real turning point for me. I was on tour in Nashville. It was on February 29th, 2016. Because I say that God made a whole extra day just for this encounter to happen. So I'm in Nashville. I'm visiting my friend who used to work at a venue. And she gives me an address to meet her. So I show up at the address. It's an off day on tour. And it's a church. And I'm like, you tricked me. You sabotaged me. You made me go to a church. So I walk in. Coincidentally, I'm wearing my aborted shirt. So I walk into this church, a ton of tattoos. I wear a shirt that says aborted real big, death metal on the back. And the arms had upside down cross pentagram, like repeating on the arms of the hoodie. And I walk in, everybody, George, is kind. Not nice. They're kind. And I was like, this is weird. This is like, why are they? I mean, if you're going to be nice, be like culty nice and like freak me out, but don't just be genuine, good, authentic people. This is weird. And then I'm sitting in the back. She's running AV, and the person giving the message is talking about how the Pharisees, like the religious leaders of the time, were angry at Jesus because the Pharisees were saying, like, you have to be born of this lineage, you have to dress this way, you have to follow these cultural traditions in order for God to accept you. And then Jesus is like, nah, man, you got to love each other and you got to be pure. And so Jesus is like this total punk. And I'm hearing this and I'm going, wait, I thought Christianity to me had always represented that finger wagging and judgment and like, you gotta be like this really specific way. You gotta follow all these rules. And then Jesus comes and is like, it's not about the rules, man. It's about love. And I'm like, wait a second. Have I been wrong for a quarter century? And I just have no idea what this book is about. I have no idea who Jesus is or what he said. And it was so challenging to me because I had built my position on faith on hearsay. It's like saying that you don't like the Jets because every time you meet a Jets fan, they're a jerk. Yeah. And it's like, do you know anything about the team? Have you ever seen them play? You ever been to a Jets game? And you're like, no, I don't have to because I don't like their fans. That's what I was doing with Christians.
Wow. That's powerful and so true, right? Man. Johnny, it's been super cool catching up with you again and learning more about you. I know you have a hard stop, so I want to honor that. I want to honor your time. Do you have any, closing statements or things you'd like to say to the audience or anything maybe we missed in the interview?
Just so I'll plug a few things and then I'll give just one piece of encouragement that I wish I would have heard when I was younger. So quickly, if you look up the band Prison on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube, we have a record called Still Alive that is focused on mental health that you might like. And also we're putting out new music right now. So if you go to any of our pages, I recommend you check out the new stuff. But Still Alive is a great record to start with. If you go to copenotes.com, you can sign up for yourself. You can buy a subscription for a friend or family member. If you search Johnny Crowder on YouTube, you can find TED Talks. And if you go to johnnycrowder.com, you can look at some of my speaking stuff. And then I'm on Instagram at Johnny Crowder Loves You because I do. I also use LinkedIn. Apparently I'm not the best messenger, but I do use LinkedIn for work stuff. And then I will say that I talk about this in my second TED Talk. It's the phrase, tomorrow might be better. I am obsessed with that phrase because it is never not true. It is perpetually true. Tomorrow might be better. There is a chance that tomorrow will not be as difficult as today. And if you can muster the courage to roll those dice enough times, I believe that your life in the future will not look like it looks now. And I just tell people, don't lock in those losses. It's like buying into the stock market and then selling when the stock goes down. Like, don't sell, don't lock in those losses. And that's what I was trying to do. My life was bad. And I was like, let's just call it. Don't call it when your stocks are down. Like, stay in the game, let them rise again. And I am living, walking, breathing proof that your life can look extraordinarily, unrecognizably better. It might not happen immediately, but if you just remember, like, if I just stick around for one more day, tomorrow might be better. Please, if you lose all other hope, hang on to that.
That's powerful, man. Johnny, thank you so much. I'm going to end the podcast. Just hang on 1 second before you click off, though, Johnny. I got to tell you one thing. Everybody, Johnny Crowder, check his stuff out. It's really powerful. It's super. If you're struggling with mental health, it's very helpful. And if you love rock music, you'll love his band. Johnny, thank you, my brother.